I call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Northfield Public School Board. Today is Monday, January 12th, and the time is 6:35 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The recording of this meeting will be posted on the district website as soon as possible. Welcome members of our community here tonight to observe the important work being done on behalf of all school district stakeholders. Dr. Hellman, we have some items in the table file. Will you update us?
Yes, there's several items in the table file. There is an updated file to accompany the stadium naming rights contract. There are also several personnel items, including appointments, increase, decrease, change in assignment, and some resignations. We also have the enrollment report, the first of 2026, included in the table file this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no objections, we will add these items to the agenda as we move forward. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented? Okay, moved by Jeff. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Maggie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 3 is our public comment, and we do not have anyone signed up, so we'll move on to item 4, which is announcements and recognitions.
Yes, we have several this evening. I just want, for those listening, I want to acknowledge that there's been an issue with the video bridge tonight, so we are streaming audio only, and that will be posted to the website after the completion of the meeting. This evening, I'd like to share that Evelyn Bauer and Isaac Schleif have been named Northfield High School's 25-26 AAA Award winners. Evelyn and Isaac will now advance to compete with other Region 1 AA school winners for the opportunity to be selected as regional selections in this Minnesota State High School League program. The Academics, Arts, and Athletics AAA Award is sponsored by the State High School League. It honors high school seniors across the state who maintain a 3.0 or higher GPA while participating in league-sponsored athletics and fine arts activities. So congratulations to Evelyn and to Isaac. Northfield High School juniors Bella Christopherson and Ben Heinrichs have been selected as the 2025 MSHSL Excel Award recipients. Bella and Ben stood out in a highly competitive field through their outstanding achievements in athletics and in the fine arts, their meaningful volunteer contributions, and for their exemplary leadership. So congratulations to Bella and Ben. The Excel Award, which stands for Excellence in Community Education and Leadership, is a distinctive recognition program created exclusively for Minnesota high school juniors who are actively involved in school activities, demonstrate strong leadership, and show a deep commitment to community service. Proud to share that Bridgewater Elementary School Principal Nancy Antoine has been selected as the recipient of the City of Northfield's 2026 Human Rights Award. Mrs. Antoine was selected for this award for her dedication to advancing educational equity and justice for all students, as well as her leadership, mentorship of future leaders, and her work to diminish persistent educational gaps within the Northfield Public Schools community. She'll be honored during the city's Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration on Monday, January 19th at 6 p.m. That is being held this year in the Northfield High School Auditorium. That's the first time that I can recall that we've hosted this event. So 6 p.m. Next Monday in the high school auditorium. And then finally, I want to share that 80 high school students gathered at Carleton's White Center on December 11th for the 10th Youth Data Summit. 5 Northfield students led this year's summit, welcoming peers from Faribault, Waterville, Elysian, Morristown, and Tri-City United to dive into Rice County's 2025 Minnesota Student Survey results. Our student leaders facilitated meaningful conversations, built connections across districts, and helped everyone learn more about their communities. The proposals the students developed will help shape real decisions that affect their peers. So just want to thank Emily Culver and all the folks from HCI who helped really facilitate that Youth Data Summit. Those are your announcements for this evening.
Thank you very much. Board members, do you have any announcements or recognition? You, Amy?
First, as a former member of the Human Rights Commission, I just want to say, wow, Nancy Antoine got it. That's great news. But I do have an announcement as well. This is just more of a shout out to Ray Coudray and the Northfield Fine Arts Boosters, who had a very successful fundraiser on Saturday evening at the Armory, and I had the joy of attending. They had all different groups playing the music of Bruce Springsteen, and I'm sure they raised thousands of dollars to help enhanced art education and activities in our district. So thank you to all of them.
Else? Right, thank you. Next item is items for discussion and reports. And first, we have our financial forecast and revised 2025-2026 general fund budget. Director of Finance Val Merster will review the recommended revisions to this general fund budget. The general fund budget revision accounts for legislative impacts, financial audited data, and settled contracts and benefits. Welcome, Val.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So we're a little out of sync of our normal kind of routine that we've been in the last several years that I've been doing this, but tonight I'll be presenting the revised general fund budget and the financial forecast at the same time. The audit results were a little delayed this past year, so we're kind of shifting, but this will be a lot of information, a lot of detailed information. So certainly I will open it for questions at the end. There was a lot of information in your packet. I've used this picture the last couple of years for the forecast just because I feel like they're looking into the future with their binoculars. So it's one of my favorites. In no shocking turn of events, we start every presentation with our strategic plan. So our vision is preparing every student for lifelong success by developing critical thinkers who are curious and ready to engage in our society. Obviously, as the finance department, stewardship is our primary strategic commitment lens that we're looking through, but obviously we're making sure that our decisions and our financial resources are meeting all of these the best that we can. So I wasn't joking when I said there's a lot of information. So the general fund budget revision, we're going to talk about updated enrollment. Now we're past October 1st, so we revised that estimate. We have a settled contract with the NEA, the Northfield Education Association, and we have our final audited data. So all of that kind of goes in to say what was projected in the spring, what's changed, what do we know, and updating those items as they come about. And then we take that revised budget, and that's really the base for the updated financial forecast. So we'll talk a little bit about the financial cycle that we use here in Northfield, what our known parameters are, which I will just give you a teaser. There's not a ton of them. Updated enrollment projections that go beyond just this year, and then the financial assumptions that we're putting into the model. We're going to talk a little bit about the board's opportunity to renew the operating levy and what that potential timeline looks like, and then all the budget presentations for the coming spring. So for the 25-26 general fund budget revision, again, key factors are really that audited information, making sure everything's finalized from the prior fiscal year. October 1st is no longer a projection. We know how many students are showing up every day and can have a stronger projection for the end of this year. Employment contracts are settled. We have staff hired. We know where they were placed. Any grants that we have or that, last minute get delayed by the state for a year, we have all that updated information. Any contract renewals, and we have some more benefit information finalized into this year. So those are kind of what drive the bulk of this revision. So in terms of enrollment projection, I like to look at it this way. So you can see last fiscal year, what did we project in the spring? What did we revise and how did we actually land? Because that's 70% of our revenue is enrollment driven. So if this is really far off, then it's going to impact everything else that I'm presenting. And so you can see we projected last year to end with about 4,157 weighted pupil units. So that's weighting 7 through 12 at 1.2. That's what all the formulas generate revenue on. And we ended with slightly higher than that, so 4,172.8. So that's a good place to be. Again, it's the ballpark, but anytime it's over means we got a little more revenue than originally projected. And then for 25-26 in the spring, we were projecting about 4,120. Again, not a significant change, a very slight decrease. lots of shuffling between grades, which I found very interesting, or between grade groupings, I should. But overall, a 1.9 weighted student decrease. So for all intents and purposes, really consistent in terms of what was projected. So for the revenue revision, again, most things are pretty similar. There were not large swings other than you'll see state sources increased. That is primarily driven off the audited results, where we had a pretty substantial one-time bump in our special education revenue. That was due to a change in specifically how we used our federal funding to pay for tuition billing. And so that was kind of a one-time bump up, and then we expect to stay at that level with kind of the normal increases year over year after that. And so that was a big shift there. The decrease in federal sources is because the 21st Century grant that we reapplied for in the spring, I believe we submitted in March and we were supposed to hear in May. And I believe we found out in August, the end of August, if I recall, that they were just freezing that for a year because the federal funds had been held and they didn't have enough time to process everything. And so we just do not have that grant for this year. That was about $125,000 grant each year, depending on how we used it. It was a 3-year grant typically, and we've had it for 9 years, 8 or 9 years, something like that. So that was a big deal to just have that not showing up when we were planning. So we've shifted gears a little bit on how the community school program looks this year, but we are still running community school programming. Again, that is one of the bright spots out of how we used our ESSER funding to kind of expand that model. We built up the fund balance in that targeted services area to help support that. So we are still able to offer it even without that funding this year. But again, that'll be kind of a long-term consideration depending on what they choose to do with that grant moving forward. And then we did get a one-time, they had a cybersecurity grant, and it was honestly one of the easiest grants I've ever applied for. It was a quick one-pager. Do you spend money on this? Yes. How much? And so this is helping. We were awarded $80,000 to offset our annual subscription for the Arctic Wolf, which is our kind of cyber liability insurance network where they're monitoring our network 24/7. So that was a nice bonus. Again, those are those kind of one-off grants that the state has, the 2023 legislature really modeled that competitive grant. So again, these are one-time things, which I will try hard to emphasize a lot because it's important to remember when things are continuing and when they're not. But those were kind of the big ones in terms of the revenue. And so I think it's about just over $1 million increase over the prior year. Again, the vast majority of that related to special ed. So about a 1.46% increase. And this is even more data to look at, so I'll talk through this a little bit. We talk about expenditures in terms of where we're spending it, what type of program. Is it administration? Is it in the classroom? Is it supporting? And then what are we spending on? Salaries, contracts, supplies. And so these are the same dollar amounts, just split out in 2 different ways so you can see the different classifications. So in terms of expenditures, we're looking at about $350,000 more, which is not a huge increase, about 0.52%. And definitely where I would love to be. It's great when the expenditures are projected to be close to what we were already projecting. So that's a good place to be. Most of these increases are really related to the settlement with the NEA and just making sure that all of the costs are captured and associated there. The Minnesota paid leave tax takes effect January 1. So this next payroll, we'll see that for the first time coming through. And then I think those are the big ones. Health insurance being a big one that came through on the teacher contract. That was a little more than we had originally projected. And so that's just kind of shuffling through, making sure all those match up. So about 350,000 more. And then in terms of the fund balance projection, this is obviously a really critical data point that we use to make sure that we are being good stewards and making sure that we're meeting the board's goal of the 14% and using that to make sure we have enough fund balance to support any kind of one-off things that we are not anticipating. So we had originally projected ending 24-25 with, I want to say, about 12% fund balance. That increase in the special education and the expenditure budget coming in right on target meant we ended at 15.3. And so anytime you're projecting and something ends up better, that's going to forecast forward. And so for 25-26, I intentionally left the original beginning fund balance in calculation. So we were projecting to end at 15.1 this fiscal year. But now that we have that final data from the audit, we are actually projected to end at about 18.4. And so this is a great, this is exactly what we were hoping for when we went through the priority-based budget reduction process. The only way currently for the school district to not have a priority-based budget reduction every year, is really to build up that fund balance, just like when we passed our operating referendum. We built it up and then spent it down because our revenue just does not keep pace with inflation in the way that where we could manage that year over year. So this is a very solid place to be and provides us the stability that we were really working towards. So that's pretty much the revision of the budget. So now I'm going to kind of shift gears into the forecast. The financial cycle is one of the best parts of working in this district. I actually get to teach this to other school business officials because it works so well for us. And so really what this means is we are in front of the board and the community at least 4 times a year, updating and making sure that things make sense and that they're on track with what we were expecting. So we are up in the little red quadrant right now doing that financial projection. Again, typically we do the revised budget in December, but we're combining those tonight. The financial projection is really setting up the adopted budget for the next school year. So we're looking at the legislative assumptions that we're going to make and other just contractual assumptions. We're going to be negotiating with the other 16 contracts in the coming months, and so making assumptions about how those will settle. Then all spring, as you know, I'll be up here presenting the variety of budgets that we have. We make assumptions about staffing and student count with enrollment, legislative, all the good things, and that's all adopted before June. And then in the fall, we do the audit and we verify if things came in at where we were expecting. And then we, again, circle back to that revised budget after we have that October 1 enrollment, all the contracts are settled and staff are hired. And we just kind of keep going around. So it has worked really well in this district to make sure we're on top of the numbers. Again, it's providing a lot of transparency for the community and keeping people informed. So I'm a big fan of it, and I hope you are too. So here's what we do know. Again, it's limited. So again, strategic commitment to stewardship. That is the lens that we are constantly looking through to make sure that we are meeting not only the goals and the vision of the district, but community expectations as well. So we ended 24-25 with 15.3% unassigned fund balance, which is above the goal. 26 revised budget has a surplus of about 1.9 million. We are still experiencing that ongoing incremental declining enrollment. So that does play a pretty substantial part in our revenue budget. And 80% of our budget is just salary and benefits. I may sound like a broken record, but that is how our budget is structured. We are we hire people to do good things for kids. So that's where we're at with that. And again, that is not unique to Northfield. Every school district has a budget like that. Enrollment drives about 70% of our total revenue. Again, why we highlight that data point so significantly. And then we know, and you've heard it probably hundreds of thousands of times at this point, but the state's financial support, the state is 68% of our revenue budget, is consistently losing ground to inflation for the last 20 or 30 years. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the slide here. Minnesota paid leave tax implementation, again, that started January 1. And then any legislative impacts. Again, in this second year, there's not as many, but still a few to consider. But then also planning what is that going to look like in their next cycle. So this is the 6-year projection in terms of enrollment. So you can see some of the history of where we've been and where we are projected to be. So you can see it's not mass exodus, it's slow incremental, which can almost be more challenging just because of the way it erodes the revenue and the ability that we have to respond to it. So overall, what this shows is the middle school is actually going to stay pretty consistent or slightly increase over the next couple of years, and elementary and secondary decline slightly. So again, it's been pretty consistent year over year. What we've seen, it aligns with what our demographic study said. It's held constant. Again, that can be really variable depending on the market. And then we know we'll continue to see an increase in our OPEB levy. That's our other post-employment benefit levy. So that supports any retiree subsidies for staying on health insurance and those sorts of things based on their contracts when they retired. So this is the revenue over 7 years. You can see two things I wanted to highlight on this particular one. The orange block in the middle is the referendum and the local optional revenue. So the local optional revenue is like $424 per weighted pupil. And the rest of it is our voter approved operating referendum. So when I say 9 million, that's a pretty substantial portion of our budget. And then on the bottom, that percent change really highlights, I talked about 2% at the state level, 2% for special education. And so you can see our percent change being 1.4 or 1.6 or 1%. That's really an impact of declining enrollment. So we are not seeing a 2% increase in our revenue because we're getting revenue on less students. So I just wanted to highlight that because this is our persistent math problem that we've continued to talk about. Even when the state gives inflationary increases, when you're in declining enrollment, it does not keep pace. In terms of our expenditure assumptions in the model, salaries are modeled based on settled contracts. So if we know what the settled contract terms are, those are included. But obviously the model's looking out 3 to 5 years. And so the increases range from 3 to 4%. But again, this is encompassing 17 total contracts that include their base pay, steps, longevity, sub pay, co-curricular, all sorts of things. And so there's a range of things that are included in that projection. It does assume a similar staffing ratio, which again, with declining enrollment is not necessarily a given, but because it's been slow and incremental, assuming a similar staffing ratio has worked pretty well, and then we can adjust each year as we determine. For benefits, we're assuming the TRA employer contribution remains at 9.81. They have increased it nearly 3% in the last 6 years. So I'm hoping that they feel like this is a place we can stay for a little while. The paid family medical leave tax is still projected at 0.44%. That could change based on the state's initial data in the program because they're using that to fund it. So if there's a large need, that would likely increase. We know that the district increase in health insurance will be 10% for 26 and 27, and then we're assuming 5% after that. The model also assumes that we'll have similar participation, that we're not going to see lots of people, enrolling in other plans and that sort of thing. Same employer contribution for dental is assumed, a 3% increase for summer employment. Again, that really is matching the salary expectations because that will increase as the salaries increase. And then a 2% increase in that other post-employment benefit, that retiree benefit, again, is really a contribution to their health plan. And so that will increase just like our health insurance increases. And then non-salary, which again is about 20% of our total budget, has about a 3% increase across the board each year. There are obviously concerns about inflationary procurement pressure, not as much as in past years, but there's still quite a bit of volatility in things that we just don't know till we know them. So 3% may not be enough, but in terms of our projection, we're really only looking at 3 years out because the legislature goes in 2-year cycles. So anything past 3 years is pretty challenging for the district to estimate accurately. So this is just another visual of our expenditures. And so you can see basically the blue and orange, that's salary and benefits. So that is the largest portion of our budget. And again, that percent change on the bottom, 4.6, 2.8, 2.9. This is our math problem. Even with 2 to 3% increases in revenue, that declining enrollment really chips away at what we have the ability to provide our staff in terms of salary increases and contracts and supplies. Financial assumptions in the model, assuming that it's been a long day. Fund balance goal continues to be 14%. Just as a reminder, that calculation excludes operating capital, long-term facility maintenance, student activities, and scholarships. So that expenditure total is slightly less than the grand total you see at the end of this. It does assume a slight spend down of that ALC targeted services fund balance, supporting that community school model like we talked about. But that is included as part of the assumptions. So this is the 24-25 actual. Our current budget, which is actually the revised budget that you will approve later tonight. And then the orange column is that projected for next year, and then the blue is 3 years out after that. And so really on here, what I would say is that increase in that position for fiscal 25 really put us in a strong and stable position to continue evaluating the impact of declining enrollment and the general economic uncertainty and instability. It shows a pretty healthy buildup of the fund balance that will provide budget stability through likely for sure the 27-28 school year, which is exactly what we told people when we did the budget prioritization. We were hoping to get a couple of years because it is a painful process to go through with our staff, and having to do that every year, every other year is not ideal for morale. This provides consistency for staff in what they can expect. And then again, this just continues to show that ongoing deterioration of the state funding and the purchasing power that we have access to. And this is just a visual kind of what you just saw on the other, the detailed numbers spreadsheet. The blue line across the middle, that light blue line, that's the unassigned target fund balance. So that's 14% of expenditures. The orange is our total fund balance. Blue is that unassigned. So the dark blue against the light blue is really what we're looking at in this slide. And then the yellow is just restricted. So you can see we kind of build it up, spend it down, which is a very normal expected operation. And I know you've seen this slide before because I had it in here last year and I just kept it because it's important. But we are looking at $1,300 or $1,400 probably at this point, in terms of the state being behind inflation. That is nearly $6 million for our district. Our taxpayers obviously have stepped up and are providing an extra $9 million to offset what the state has not kept pace with inflation. So this continues to be a struggle. I suspect it will continue to be a struggle for a little while. And then this is our budget development calendar. So February 9th, I will be presenting the operating capital and long-term facility maintenance budget. And then we'll have our first initial discussion with the board about the potential of renewing that operating referendum. The 23rd will be debt service and our internal service fund. That's our self-insured health and dental. As part of the board renewal of the operating levy, we are required to have a public hearing. And so that will be a date to be determined should the board choose to move forward with that. Probably sometime between February 9th and March 9th. So March 9th will be the construction fund. April 13th will be the child nutrition and community services budgets. You'll get a break from me for a little bit and can hear from Stephanie and Aaron. And then our recommendation would be the board vote on that renewal of the operating referendum on that April 13th meeting, should you choose to move forward with that. April 27th will be the general fund, and then May 11th will be that all budget approval. So this is a couple meetings ahead of where we were last year, which is a much better, more comfortable place to be. But hopefully everything will go on track with that. But that's our current plan for the spring in terms of pulling all the budgets together. So in summary, that was a ton of information. But if you take anything away, just know that we are in a really strong and stable position to meet our vision and provide some stability for our community and our staff and our students. Any questions?
Thank you, Val. We appreciate you, and we are in excellent hands of you. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Board members, do you have any questions at this time? Amy.
First, I want to second when Claudia just said about how much we appreciate you. I was just reading recently about a large school district to the north of us who have 3 of their top financial people on administrative leave right now for issues. So I thought of how lucky we are to have you and your expertise as part of our district. So thank you.
Thank you. Very grateful not to be in the news for those things.
Yes. And then also, thank you for your detailed presentation. Again, sort of impressive and mind-blowing in the same time. A lot of information.
Thank you for
there.
not saying mind-numbing.
Maybe a little of that too, but I didn't say that. You did. I know I've asked you this in past years. I'm going to ask it again because you said to me some magic words, updated demographic survey.
Yes.
And one of the things I keep wondering about is we use the Rice County birth rate, and your predictions are almost spot on. So I don't want to mess up your process at all because you're doing such a great job. But my presumption is that most of our students are born in Dakota County because they're born at Northfield Hospital, which is in Dakota County. And I'm wondering if you've thought at all of trying to see if there's a way of considering at least the Northfield Hospital birth rate in your projections, because I looked at the numbers that you had and it was the younger years, the younger students that really the numbers bumped up a lot. And it was the, like the high school and middle school students where we lost students. And I'm wondering if that might be because of this sort of artifact that we have where we're looking at Rice County birth rates. especially with Northfield Hospital trying to market itself as a birthing center and a place for people to come. And I know they're coming from all over, but a lot of them are Northfielders as well.
Yes, so I have looked into this a couple of different times, and I will say no one has yet been able to give me a definitive answer about if the birth rates are specifically from where the hospital is or where they live when they're born. I will also say what we're doing is using trend data, right? And so we're saying on average, we get 32 to 36% of the Rice County births. I think if we use Dakota County numbers, it'd be a similar thing, only a much smaller percentage because Dakota County is significantly larger and encompasses many of the larger districts to our north. And so I would expect it to be similar, where we would say we get 7% of the Dakota County births rather than 32 on average. So I don't expect it to be dramatically different. And I do, with the current announcements about the birth center really becoming kind of a hub, with Faribault discontinuing theirs, I think it's going to further exacerbate that it's not just Northfield. They're coming from all over at this point. But it is trend data, which is what I always go back to rely on. So we're looking at the last 5 years, really, because that's all you can do for in terms of kindergarten, because that's who's been born for sure. But that has been very consistent for us, which is one of the reasons that the production has been relatively solid for the most part.
Well, I would love to hear what you find out that the answer is, whether it's the hospital's location in Dakota County or whether it's the parent's address.
Yep.
Tell me as soon as you find out. I've been
Yes.
curious for years.
Yep.
The other thing I want you to keep in mind is if we're stealing pregnant women from Faribault because they're no longer giving birth in Faribault, that means the Rice County birth rate is going to go down because fewer babies are born in Rice County. So that might affect the trend
Mhm.
as well. So just keep
Yep.
that in mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the question.
Anyone else question at this time? Hey, Jeff.
Isn't that quite an assumption, being a baby is born, that by the time it gets to that age, it's going to still be in school? I mean, that's a whole separate issue, isn't it?
I would say the data suggests that it's been pretty consistent in terms of we've seen kind of ups and downs in terms of that birth rate in Rice County, particularly during COVID. And 5 years after, it's playing out in that 32 to 36 each year. So it has been a pretty solid trend data point for us, but we always, we want to know when birth centers are closing and when we're consolidating and other things that could impact that data point that we've used pretty consistently.
I'm just thinking how often people move.
Mhm.
Hey, anyone else question at this time? Thank you, Val.
Thank you.
Our next item is the stadium naming rights contract. This, as outlined in policy 809.1, the district requested proposals for stadium naming rights for Memorial Field. Who will be presenting on that?
Yep, that's me again. I could have just stayed up
We do
there.
have Lance here too for questions.
Oh, great. I wasn't sure if he was going to make it. Let me just get logged back in here.
This will be an item for individual action at the January 26th board meeting, and there are details in the memorandum.
Okay, so as you know, last year we really kind of full force put effort into the naming rights and advertising as another option for generating some additional revenue to support the general fund budget. And so this was our first real naming rights proposal. And so we solicited for bids. We had a night where interested vendors could come in and see. They learned about the high school project. They learned about kind of Memorial Field and how it was staying the same, what was going to be different, and some future opportunities that we're considering. And then we opened up a proposal We had the bid set at a minimum of 12,000 annually. And then within that, they get, obviously they get their name on the new digital scoreboard that was authorized a few meetings back here that we're going to be putting in this summer, hopefully. And then we opened bids until December 1st was the deadline. And so we're very excited to share that Heritage Bank was the high bidder. Their bid was 18,000 annually for 10 years. And so in the packet, you saw some kind of mock-ups of what the digital scoreboard will look like. It'll be Heritage Bank Stadium at Memorial Field. And so making sure we're incorporating Memorial Field and keeping that historical component while still honoring this new partnership. And so they will, it's basically the lump sum payment. They'll pay us once a year. They'll get some advertising on the sign, an actual mesh banner at Memorial Field, and then their name stated and, when they're doing all the announcements and all those sorts of things. So Heritage Bank is super excited to partner with us. Their comment in the survey was, this is a fantastic way to support the community and our students and feel a part of that. And so there's a draft contract, which we'll ask for approval at the next board meeting. And then those mock-ups of the digital scoreboard, I think, are the most recent that we have. That's the model we're going with and what it'll look like. We're just going through the kind of final process. We have to have it reviewed by the city and sign on with the vendor, but that should all happen over the summer. So this is our first real kind of naming rights opportunity. Obviously came in financially more than we were hoping for, which is very exciting, but we're just super grateful for the support and partnership in our community. So I don't know if Lance has anything he wants to add to that, but otherwise I'm happy to take questions.
Excellent, very exciting. Thank you, Val. Thank you, Lance. Board members, do you have any questions for Lance or Val? Okay.
Just have to keep talking to you, Val. So a question for Val and then one for Lance, okay? So I'm looking at the contract.
Yep.
And I think the contract in general is fine, but of course I always go to worst case scenarios in my mind. So what happens if Heritage Bank goes bankrupt and goes out of business? That doesn't seem to really be covered. Or if they have some terrible scandal where we no longer want to be affiliated with them.
Yep.
Can we break this contract?
Yep, I believe I don't, of course, have it right here on my screen.
it's
But
in
I do
section
believe
10.
there's language that allows for like a 30-day
If they don't pay.
dissolution of the contract.
What I read, and maybe I didn't read it clearly, is that was if they didn't pay the amount, the $18,000
Within 30 days?
So if they're bankrupt, that would work. But
That's true. We can dig more deeply. Typically, our contracts have kind of either party with written notice within a certain amount of time can dissolve the contract. So we'll make sure that language is in there. I don't see Heritage Bank having a problem with that either. On the flip side, if they for some reason determine they can't continue, but the goal is really, because we're putting it on a sign, the intention is for a long-term contract, because there is a cost to changing that out. So that's a good point. We'll make sure that it's not specific to payments and update that.
great. Now my question for Lance. First, Lance, I have to say I'm very excited about this. It's going to be such an upgrade to that field, and I think everybody's going to really enjoy having a 21st century scoreboard there. I do have a question about the design. The side that I would call the back of the scoreboard, but it's the first part of this that
Faces the school.
They faces the school.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if we could take the top half and it still say Northfield High School and Heritage Bank Stadium, but have something like welcomes you, make it more welcoming, and maybe get rid of a row of, one of the skinny rows of the advertisements, just to seem like it's not all advertisements, but it's us welcoming everybody to the stadium, because that's the first thing the opponents and their families see when they come to our stadium. Just an idea. I don't know how much money that would lose us and what that would cost, but we had have the full half of that side. It would include both Heritage Bank in there and Northfield High School, but then sort of welcomes you, something like that.
Yeah, I think I don't have anything in front of me here, but I think that'd cost you about 20 grand a year.
Is one strip. So-
Yeah, it's 4 across there, correct? I don't have anything in front of me, though. I don't have the mock-ups there. But yeah, it would be 4. And so each one of those would be 5 grand a year. So,
And maybe that's not worth it to everybody else, but I was just thinking of looks.
Yep.
Or maybe those are the last spots you sell. So if nobody buys
That-
them,
yes.
it could be something that we use.
We have talked about that, and I did talk with Heritage Bank about that, about some of those things. And that'll come to some fruition here once we start meeting with some more that are interested. But we would like that first row right underneath. That is, I think Heritage Bank is already not officially signed off on that mock-up that we made there on that side that you're talking about. But they really do like that one. But the first row directly underneath it, we would like those to all be logos with a white background to help separate from Heritage Bank and the colors, and just to make it look the way we want it to look. So yeah, we could maybe put something out there where that would be the last row that we would sell out. That's not a bad idea.
And then I just like the idea of using the
Yeah.
word welcome or something similar. So
Yeah, I haven't.
inviting.
Yeah, Mr. Mahal has asked me to start, providing the logos to him, as soon as we get through this process and we start selling some more. I need to be giving the company the logos right away so they can start making. We don't want to make them all in July, right? And so we can maybe reach out to Nevco and see what that would cost, if they're, what that additional cost would be to put a sign in there for the school, a welcome, like you're saying. Come up with a design for that.
And I assume because of how this turned out that having a double-sided screen just never panned out. That was
I
my,
did. Mahal inquired about that, and that put us out of scope with the budget.
thank you.
Okay, Amy? Thank you. Anyone else?
You have one follow-up for Amy.
Okay.
So Amy, just, I think what we should do, Val, is make sure that we reference policy 809.1 in these agreements. This is one of our first bigger agreements like this. And policy 809.1, which is the sponsorship of school district owned property, which this would be obviously one of those. That policy does give the district the ability to terminate the sponsorship at its sole discretion. So the district has that ability for a case like yours. And that was, when we developed this policy, that was exactly that piece. Again, I don't foresee any or anticipate issues with Heritage Bank, but it was that if you had a sponsor that for whatever reason started to tarnish the image of the district, that the district would be able to terminate that contract at its sole discretion. So I think the solution for moving forward is to reference that it has to be in alignment with 809.1.
Okay, Jeff?
Well, one other part of that, I don't know about bankruptcy. I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about that, other than the fact that a bank would probably be sold if it was, a lot of banks consolidate and are sold. So if it was sold and had to redo the sign on that, whose cost is that?
Heritage Banks, or whoever. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
That's spelled out in there.
Okay, and then when you reached out to the a number of people, you put that out for bid, did you feel like that was a fair and good process, and you contacted the people that were really interested and maybe taking a look at the stuff?
Yeah, we tried to put it out there, and would have I liked to have sold, like a baseball or softball field first and done one of those other high visibility things? Yes, in hindsight, because this is going to create some energy. There's no doubt about it. But we have so many things that we got the ice arena and the reimagine, and this scoreboard was already in process even before the reimagine stuff. And so it's we needed something big to give these businesses some vision as to, what we're doing here and at the quality that we are going to be doing it at. And right now, because Northfield is so far, your vision is so far ahead of most other school districts. It's hard. It's a little bit of a sell. They have to sort of see it, feel it, touch it, hear the response from it before they want to put this out there. But it did land as far as the price. It landed right, I would say, near the top end of what we've seen sold around the Rochester area in particular. Some of the gym floors and things there that is, and some naming rights that was sold. This was the near.
So that's who the people that were kind of invited. And then how did you come up with, you just said too, you're kind of playing entrepreneur because you're the first one at the party.
Yes.
So you kind of got to pick the price of the ticket to get in.
Yep.
So you said that you got some other input from other markets.
Yeah, both from the other markets and also the companies as well, both Nevco in this case and Daktronics. Also, some other schools have done this, of course, before. And not too many have sold both sides of a scoreboard like this, or at least to this level. We have one other in our conference, Albert Lee, as a double-sided video board, but they're not getting near the revenue off of it currently that Northfield is going to be.
And the last question is on terms. You landed at 10 years. So where did that come from?
Yeah, a lot of the other stuff that we've done, the scores table and the press box and some of those things were 5-year, but we wanted to make this a 10 because if within a 5, it would essentially always be up for bid. And we needed some continuity so that somebody could confidently bid on it and then they could have it for a while. So that's why we landed on 10.
Thanks for all your effort.
Yeah.
Okay, Corey.
Hey, Lance, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
More of a curiosity. I mean, this is a bit pedantic, and I'll defer to the sports experts in the room. But when is a stadium at a field, and when a field is at a stadium? I guess I'm struggling with the stadium at Memorial Field, and I can understand from a advertiser standpoint they want their name first. But does that make sense in that order? I know there's a lot of naming rights out there, and I guess I'm not familiar with all of them. And
Right.
I'm not suggesting a change. I'm just curious.
We mocked it up both ways. And I don't know that there's I don't know if there's a rendering in that packet that we gave you with the other way around.
In the table file, there was the second one.
I think maybe I've sent you a lot.
It is not something that's at all important to me, but it was something that I noticed. I don't know if it should be at Memorial Field at Heritage Bank Stadium, but
Again, yeah, I don't know that we've had some preliminary, congratulations and talks with them about that and shown them some renderings. And we've gone back and forth a few times, even since you got this, probably 4 more times since you guys got this a week ago. But I think it's still open for discussion. And
I'm comfortable with administration moving forward.
I do think, Corey, there is another example, a very famous example here in Minnesota. I think when everyone heard that we were changing the name of Mariucci Arena, right, our venerable hockey stadium on the University of hockey arena on the University of Minnesota campus, it's 3M Arena at Mariucci, right? And when people first heard that, I think they had a similar reaction that you did. And I think over time, people are there, right? And so I think it is about, I think the important piece is where did Heritage Bank think their name was going to be placed in that? Being writers, of course, that opposite way would tend to be more how we would think a field is part of the stadium. But in this case, it's about maximum, it's certainly about maximum revenue.
Yep. I actually have a question for you guys. Quick, if you could put that mock-up back up one more time, Tim, especially on the field side of it. We've mocked up a couple more versions where the Booster Club and home of Raiders would be right above Northfield High School. So that's another thing that we're kind of going back and forth with. I know when with NCC builders, just thinking about spacing and putting, what higher and lower and all those types of things. But we've mocked that up both way in both spaces as well. So just some information for you.
I have a question. Well, it's not really a question. I just wanted to push back on Amy's point because I think if we can sell the space and people are willing to do it, I would vote for that. I think you've done such a great job highlighting the local businesses, and I just love that. And I think they want the opportunity to not only advertise to Northfielders, but to people who are coming to our stadium from surrounding areas, because a lot of these businesses, are working in some of the towns around as well. So I think I think the signs all look great. As far as home of the Raiders, I guess if someone's willing to pay for that slice of the board, let's give it to them. So
Did you have a comment too, Jeff?
Well, I don't know. As a Raider, the only alumni on the board here, I mean, it is home of the Raiders, but I would have to wait and see how the sign looks up. And even you want, to Amy's point and to your point, I mean, you want it to look professional, you want it
Right.
to look good, and you don't want it to look, gaudy.
Right.
And that's kind of the difference between advertising. And I think that's going to finally come back to the final mock-up of what it actually looks like and whether
Right.
we approve that or want to adjust that. So.
Yeah, we have definitely noticed, and we take it very seriously in the office, that we try to do everything we can as first class as we can within the budgets that we have to work within, and and also allowing students to be in the mix and do their stuff with us. But by us pushing the quality of everything that we do has encouraged the local businesses to want to do more and giving them the confidence to do more. Heritage Bank, I think, also just bought your scoreboard in your ice arena as well. So it's the city's ice arena. Yeah, I understand that. I understand it's the city's ice arena that the school is going to be. Yeah, I understand that. But from my point of perspective, it's all going this way, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and to realize that there are about 15,000 plus, I think was the number of the graduates that are alumni of that school. So it's kind of like, and I mean, I'm obviously alumni, so it's kind of like, and I can tell you what the beat is of the Northfield alumni in a lot of respects, but I mean, that depends. But so, I mean, yeah, you want to reach out for people and give them the opportunity to give a little bit of input, on that too. So we just, want it to look professional, and obviously you're leaning in that direction.
Anyone else comment or question? Okay, Ben.
Lance, I just wanted to say thanks for being a partner in this and kind of leaning into this, helping us navigate it, and all the work that you do on the Northfield Live. I think that's just kind of just elevates people's experience and being able to see events remotely, and just kind of upping the quality of the experience that they'll have at the stadium as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Amy.
One more question. I'm just wondering about, are all of the advertisements on separate panels that then can be changed in and out easily? Is that how it works?
So yeah, they're sold horizontally, if you will. So if we were I think in that mock-up, the first one in that second row that we were talking about, that was 2 spaces that vendor was talking about there. But but yeah, besides that, they're all individual. So we can sell a whole row by row if somebody wanted to buy all 4 of those spaces. But otherwise, how they're divided up there is how they would be. I think there has to be one clear down the middle. And that was sort of unclear, both in dealing with the vendors about how that was. And we're also when we're talking about the lighting, because we wanted to look first class and be lit very nicely. We didn't want lights shining up into the sky. We're thoughtful about the light of giving off and when it would be on and all of those things. And we want to get equal representation to all. We don't want the ones in the corners to be dark or anything like that. So
they're backlit then?
they would be backlit, correct? But yeah, as far as, I'm not exactly sure if especially that one going right down the middle, has to be there or not. But I feel like it might have to be for structural integrity.
But still, some company could buy the whole length if they wanted to and just go right across. And
Right.
if somebody changes their logo, they can
Yes.
switch it out, or if somebody
that
goes
would be on-
bankrupt or whatever.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. That's why we mocked up both Cardinal and Post like that. So in Quarterback Club, so that we could show that somebody can buy, if they buy more than one, that's how it has to be.
Anyone else? Good. Okay, thank you, Lance.
Yeah, thanks.
Very exciting. Okay, item C is Special Services FTE request. Director of Special Services Sarah Pratt will come up and share the details of her request. And this will be an item for individual action at our next board meeting, January 26th.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate your time and attention to this. I am here to respectfully ask for your consideration of additional FTE. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I will reassure you that we have amazing staff in place in our buildings who are working really hard and diligently to meet the needs of students. And despite their best efforts, we still have some ongoing pretty complex and intense needs that are impacting safety for students and staff. And we do have a need, after all of the problem solving we've done to meet those needs at a cost neutral way, we do have a need for some additional staff for your consideration for a full-time or a 6.75 hour a day position at Bridgewater Elementary, and then for a 3.375 hour position at Spring Creek Elementary. And with the 55%, approximate 55% reimbursement of salary that we get, the total cost for those two positions for the remainder of the school year would be just over $23,000. So, any questions?
Okay, Ben.
Thanks, Sarah. I just wanted to kind of touch on the safety concern that you raised there and just recognize that, be an item for action at our next meeting. Would it be beneficial for us to consider it now, just so you can move forward in that hiring process? Maybe calling out kind of safety apps.
Yeah, again, I always appreciate that consideration. It's not expected, but if it's something that you would like to consider, it'd certainly be appreciated.
You want to make a motion, Ben?
Do we do that now or when we get to items for action?
Do it now.
We will need to make a motion to move that to items for action, but why don't we allow for some more discussion? Did you have a question?
No, I was just, if he's going to make a motion, I was going to second
Oh,
it.
sure. Anybody else have a question or comment at this time? Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, Corey did.
Oh, Corey.
Sorry.
Appreciate you being here. Never regret asking for help.
Oh, well,
And
thank you. I appreciate it.
Agree with Ben to move it to an item for action.
All right, Ben, do you want to make a motion for us?
Sure. So I move to move this particular item, which I
Yep.
have in front of me, but if somebody wants to fill me in, we can do that, to items for action for tonight's meeting.
Is there a second on this
I
move?
second that.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, and we'll take a vote now, or?
Oh, you need to take a vote to move it to the, and then another vote later.
Okay, all those in favor to move item C, Special Services FTE request to items for individual action for tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes, and we will move this item C into individual action items tonight.
Thank you
Sarah.
all.
All right, well done. Item 6 is our committee reports. We have 3. Board members, you're welcome to leave your report as is, or you can give some comments. First, we have Communications Advisory Committee, and Maggie Epstein will provide an update or leave it as is. What would you like to do?
Sure, I'll let it stand, but I did want to say thank you to Kelly Spillman Kramer and Aaron Bailey, who coordinate and guide that group.
Excellent. Thank you, and thank you for submitting that report. B is Automotive and Transportation CTE Committee, and this report was submitted by Board Member Jenny Nelson. Jenny, would you like to give some comments or let it stand?
I can let it stand, but I just wanted to make a comment that it was not included in our committee list that was in our board packet.
Okay, thank you. Right, and then item C is Facilities Advisory Committee, and Board Member Amy Gerwitz submitted that report. Amy, would you like to give some comments or let it stand?
I'd like to let it stand, but I'd also like to open up the opportunity for more people in the community to join this committee. It's an interesting committee to be part of, and just let the district office know if you'd like to join us.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next item is the consent agenda, and as a reminder, there was some personnel items in the table file added to the consent grouping. Is there anyone who would like to pull anything from the consent grouping for separate consideration? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent grouping?
Motion?
Okay, thank you, Maggie. Can I get a second? Okay, thank you, Jenny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, we are quickly on to items for individual action. And we will have 3 items. We have our fiscal year 2025-26 general fund budget revision. I will take a motion first and then we can have discussion. Is there a motion to approve the revised 2025-26 general fund budget with revenues of $70,171,484 and expenditures of $68,208,704?
I'll move.
Thank you, Corey. Your second? Second. Okay, thank you, Amy. All right, so Val presented on this item. Are there any further items for discussion? More comments or questions? Right, then we can move to a vote. There is a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Item B is our policy committee recommendations, and I'll take a motion to approve the policy committee's recommended changes to policy 203, 306, 519, 712, and 722. Who will move? Okay, Amy, thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Maggie. Are there any questions on any of these policies or any comments board members would like to make? And at this time, okay. We have a motion and a second, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. And then our newest item, which was the request for a full-time position at Bridgewater Elementary and another partial position at 3.75, I believe, 3.375 hours per day at Spring Creek. Okay, can I get a motion to approve this request?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Second.
Thank you, Corey. Okay, are there any questions or comments? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you for moving that, Ben. Okay, next we have our items for information. We have an enrollment report, and Dr. Hillman will provide, will review that January 2026 enrollment report. That report is found in your table file and also published on the district website.
Yes, so for the second month in a row that you will see that our enrollment based on the numbers with the exclusion of early childhood and the part-time independent study students at the ALC is at 3685, which aligns with what the projection has been. So for 2 months in a row, we're right on what the projection has been from Val. I also am committed to showing you this part right here each month, which shows the elementary school class sizes. So you can see on the screen here the distribution similar to what it has been most of the year. I'd be happy to take any questions about the enrollment report.
Board members, any questions for Dr. Hillman at this point? Don't see any, so thank you for providing that, and we will move on to the next item, which you will also be presenting, construction update number 21.
Yeah, so I'm going to let the report stand. We will be I'm going to point out one item, which is that at the next meeting, we're going to have our second large report from Wold and Knutson. So they're going to give you updates on design, updates on process. It's going to be very, very real in the next few months. We're starting to do the pre-bid preparation. And so bids will be released in February and looking to approve those likely in very early April. So Knutson and Wold will be here to provide a very significant presentation at the next meeting, major update for the community. Otherwise, I'll let the report stand.
Excellent. Thank you for submitting that. Okay, item 10 is our future meetings, and those will be Monday, January 26th, 6 p.m. It's a regular board meeting here in this boardroom. Then we have a board work session Thursday, January 29th, also in this boardroom, and the topic is later school start times. We have a regular meeting Monday, February 9th, 6 p.m., and a regular meeting Monday, February 23rd, 6 p.m., both of those in this boardroom. Yep, that is all the business that we have tonight. I get a motion to adjourn our regular meeting.
Motion.
Thank you, Jeff. There's a second? Second. Okay, thank you, Maggie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, we are adjourned. Thank you.